extraordinary story.
It's a really interesting life.
He really must have been a most extraordinary and remarkable man.
Well, we often get medals brought to the roadshow, but rarely do we get groups as wonderful as this, which contain not one, but 2 decorations for gallantry. Are these from your family?
Grandfather.
And your grandfather was Company Sergeant Major Robert Moyes Distinguished Conduct Medal, awarded the Military Cross, which is that one, for conspicuous gallantry and initiative on the 8th of August 1918, when his company commander had become a casualty, and although wounded himself, he took command and led the company through a dense fog, machine gun and shell fire. In the mist they passed by a battery, which opened fire on them with a machine gun. This warrant officer rushed it by himself, capturing it and the battery of field guns with 1 officer and 20 men. He showed splendid leadership, courage and endurance. Oh, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
It's not surprising that they awarded him this decoration, which was for junior officers of captain and below and warrant officers, already on the top of his Distinguished Conduct Medal, which he had got in 1917 for consolidating a company position. So he was obviously a great man of action.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's 5'4".
5'4".
And a medical reject at first. He had to fight to get in.
I don't suppose the Germans didn't know what it hit them, you know, coming out of the mist. So, but the rest of the group is also very interesting, because you get a Elizabeth II Meritorious Service Medal and the 3 typical First World War medals, the 1914-15 Star, the Victory Medal and the War Medal, and then we get into the Second World War, and at the end are various foreign medals. And I think that when you get a group that is as good as this, it's always worth framing it, and particularly framing it with a picture and also the citations. These are now getting very fragile.
Yeah, he didn't take care of them. You can see he punched holes in them and stuck them on the file. You know where some people hang them on the wall.
He probably thought nothing of it.
No, he used to tell me, and he would never let me write anything about him when he was alive.
You often find that incredibly brave people just think, you know, it's the sort of thing they do every day, and they're always very modest and retiring. I know it's always difficult to put a monetary value on one man's courage, but have you thought what they might be worth?
No, never.
Well, I think that because there are...
I wouldn't sell them anyway, so...
2 of them, 2 decorations and this wonderful picture and the citations, I think that these are worth between £1,500 to £2,000. They really are a super group, and thank you very much for bringing them.
Thanks very much.
Now here is a woman, obviously a high-ranking naval officer, and she looks to me stern, but somehow kind. Did you know her?
She was my great-aunt, and she was also my godmother. Well, she was superintendent of the Wrens in Portsmouth during the war.
Right.
But that was only part of quite a glorious career. She's mentioned in quite a lot of literature in Portsmouth. And then after the war, she became the director of the Land Army until 1950, when it was disbanded.
I see.
And so she was part of disbanding the Land Army.
Well, altogether an extremely capable woman then.
Yes.
Extremely capable.
Yes. And the antithesis of the great career was that she went back to the west of Ireland, lived the rest of her life, and started a raspberry farm.
Oh, right.
And is well known as quite a character with the locals in the west of Ireland.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, would you agree that she's stern but kind? Because I think this portraitist, whose name is Middleton Todd, Arthur Middleton Todd, is well known to an entire generation, a younger generation of artists whom he taught and was involved in setting an example too. Apparently a very modest man himself. I often like to think of the chemistry between a sitter and an artist, and it seems to me that this stern but kind woman rather got on with this artist, because she looks as though she's about to laugh, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a very successful painting. You know it's quite dirty, don't you? Well, perhaps you don't.
Yes.
Well, it is
Probably.
quite dirty, and it would clean, and I think that she would come alive, really. I think she'd look great.
Yes.
Even more characterful. I mean, it's a lovely picture. Have you ever thought of value? Probably not, I don't know, because she's a family member.
No, I'd like to give the whole collection with her medals, her CBE.
You've got your her medals here.
This is her. These are her medals. her CV. And I'd really rather they went to a museum in Portsmouth. I think they should be returned to Portsmouth.
Because I was going to say, whoever owns it really needs to have some identity with the sitter. Otherwise, it doesn't really, have much relevance, as it were.
No.
And in that sense, in the open market, a portrait of just somebody isn't really going to be worth that much, unless it's a very beautiful girl or an extremely handsome or terribly important man,
Yes.
And so, really, in the open market, you couldn't put more than, I don't know, £1,000 or £2,000 on this.
As much as that.
Well, as much as that,
Yeah,
perhaps,
yeah.
but incalculable value to yourself, the family, and of course, perhaps to the Naval Museum.
Yes, I think the Wrens, should have it.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a really interesting life and a good portrait of her, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
ringing.
very much indeed.
Right.
Thank you.
My father served with Captain Scott in Discovery, as it was then, SS Discovery, on her first voyage to Antarctica and maiden voyage. He also went the second time in Terra Nova because...
Did he really?
He did,
It's
yes.
extraordinary. Here we have a book bound in sailcloth,
Oh, yes.
and this is your father's log of his time with
That's
Captain
right.
Scott on
Yes.
the Discovery.
Yes.
And I suspect this is Discovery's sailcloth,
I would presume he acquired it somehow, yes.
You can see W.L. Heald, A.B., HMS Discovery, Antarctic exploring vessel, July 31st, 1901. Over the page, a lovely and rather sort of bad condition photograph of Discovery in the East India Docks. Well, here we get an introduction to the expedition itself, or to his journal, which is quite extensive. He includes a lot of sort of scraps that he's cut out from here and
yes, yes, that would be afterwards, of course.
there. And then here, a very attractive little watercolour done by one of his shipmates, I think,
yes,
probably.
Yes.
Discovery clearing the pack ice, done in the winter of 1902. Things like this are increasingly sought after and of considerable value now. Now, the other thing here is the Antarctic Medal, if I can just put it there. And this has got 2 bars for Discovery and Terra Nova.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that actually there are only 25 barred Antarctic medals of the Great Age, polar medals of the Great Age.
Oh.
The most anybody ever got was 4, which was Ernest Joyce.
Yes.
I'd finally want to talk about this glorious watercolour by
yes.
Edward Wilson,
Yes.
who died with Scott
Yes.
soon after the polar journey. It was used, in fact, as one of the plates, one of the illustrations of a work done soon after the expedition returned.
I've never been to Antarctica, but it looks so realistic, the picture.
Yes, it does. You can feel the freezing winds, can't you? I suppose we must talk slightly about values. I mean, had you any idea? Have you got them insured at all?
No, not
No.
at all.
This, I think, probably we're looking in the region of about £10,000 to £12,000.
Good heavens.
The medal, I think, probably about 8,000 to 10,000, something of that order. And that could go higher because it's so unusual to get these 2 bars from the 2 great expeditions. And finally, this marvellous Wilson watercolour, which I think probably might command about £7,000 at auction, something like that.
Monetary, I wouldn't care less, neither do the family. Historically, yes.
I'm glad to hear it.
What did you do in the war, Daddy? That's a question that many children have asked their fathers. But you know, don't you?
Indeed, yes, I do. Yep.
Tell me what he did.
He was with the 1st Tanks, went out to Sinai, Palestine.
There's a group of soldiers here. Is one of them your father?
Yes, it's this chap here.
With the glasses?
Yes, that's him.
He looks
Yes.
very young.
Yes, he was 21, I believe, at the time.
It must have been quite an adventure for him, I would think.
I think so, yes, particularly in those days when people didn't travel very far anyway, did they?
No, that's
So
true.
to go out to Palestine, that was quite something.
Hang on a minute. These are photographs inside a tank.
Yes, he
Do you know,
was
I've
very...
never seen photographs of taken by an amateur photographer
Yes,
inside
he
a tank.
took them himself.
He did?
Yes, and developed them.
Did he take all of these photographs?
Took all of the photographs and developed them in war conditions. Yes.
Heavens above. So, your mother, are you? You're
Yes, I am mother.
Yes, and you were married to him. What's his name?
John William Bishop Farmer.
John William Bishop Farmer. And was he just in the tank regiment?
He did serve with Lawrence, didn't he?
Hang on. Lawrence?
Yes.
The Lawrence of Arabia?
Yes.
He served with Lawrence?
Yes. Donned Arab costume and went and served with Lawrence. Yes.
Good Lord, that's extraordinary. And fought the Turks?
That's right.
With
yes.
Lawrence?
Yes, that's right.
Rode a
yes.
camel.
Yes,
Did he?
Yes.
That's amazing. But he seemed to be, from some of these medals, quite well awarded. He has here the MBE,
Yes,
military
indeed.
MBE,
Yes.
and of course these two First World War medals.
Yes, he also had the military cross, didn't he?
Did he really?
And the
Yes,
OBE.
And the OBE, yes.
So he was very well awarded.
Yes, he was commissioned in the field for bravery.
And did he find quite a great interest in the Arabs? I mean, was he very interested in them?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed.
He liked them a lot.
He did?
He liked their bravery. And when he returned to Britain, he actually called his home Khan Yunis, which means little oasis.
Oh, how wonderful.
Which was a spot where he was wounded when he was out in Palestine.
Yes.
And as it happened, Khan Yunis was in Oriental Road in Woking, where the first mosque was built. And he made contact there and became converted to Islam.
This presumably is him.
Yes.
And this is the Quran.
And that's me with him learning to
This
read.
is you?
Yes.
And you have also taken that faith, have you?
I have indeed, yes, and so have my children.
Really? You know, it's a fascinating story, and I would imagine there's far more involved than we can possibly go into
Indeed.
now. And of course, at some point we have to look at the value, or think about the value of what you've got. The majority of which, I would imagine, is in the medals. But of course, the moment you start to improve the interest in a group of medals with ephemera, photographs, the story of someone who actually served with Lawrence, who served in the tank corps in the Eastern Desert, who converted to Islam, the most extraordinary life, really. The moment you put all that together, it makes quite a valuable group. And I would say that we would probably be thinking in terms of an auction value of something in the region of £5,000 to £7,000.
Good gracious.
Extraordinary story. Absolutely.
We wouldn't get rid of them. They are a sentimental value.
Oh,
I'm
indeed.
very pleased to hear that. Pass it down the family, whatever you do.
Yes.
This medal was presented to my uncle in the early part of the Second World War when he was in the Metropolitan Police. It was during the Blitz, and they went into a building that had been bombed by the Germans and rescued some people from the building. And,
so he got his George Medal.
He was presented
well
with the George Medal.
deserved. I should imagine going into Blitz buildings was a hairy experience. But here we have a BBC record you've also brought in. Unfortunately, we managed to borrow a 78 player from somebody here. So this is wonderful. Now, what is on the record?
Well, I don't know what's exactly on the record because I've never heard it before.
You haven't?
I haven't.
Oh, this is marvellous, isn't it?
My mother told me that she was interviewed by the BBC
right.
Just after the bombing, and his account of the rescue is on that record.
Right. Oh, this is exciting, isn't it? So now we must find out just what we can hear.
I returned to the station about 2 minutes later, and there I found 3 PCs and a police sergeant waiting on me. They told me where the bombs had dropped, so I immediately rushed them up to the scene. When I got up there, I climbed over into the debris, and immediately I got on the top of the debris. We heard a murmur. We called for silence, and everyone, there were about 60 people there at that time, immediately became silent, and we heard a woman moaning, and suddenly she screamed out. I discovered that she was under the roof, so we started throwing large pieces of debris to the side and crawled under.
Wonderful. I mean, you know, you must have a peculiar feeling here to hear this voice.
Yes, it's spooky really because it sounds very similar to my mother and my grandfather. as a voice from the past.
And then, of course, he has campaign medals here.
Yes. Later on, he joined the RAF and he was in Bomber Command. He flew numerous missions over Germany, and unfortunately he was taking part in the bombing of Nuremberg towards the end of the war. And on his way back home he was shot down over France, and he, along with his crew, were unfortunately all killed.
So all these chaps were lost?
They were all lost, yes.
Really, what a tragedy. But a group like this, especially you have this extra material and the record, would fetch in auction, I would think, something in relation to £2,000.
Good God.
So there you are. There were roughly 2,000 George medals awarded. So there's not a great many. I think any collector would love it, really love it.
So what's your connection with Sunderland Football Club?
My granddad played for them.
Right. And is he by any chance the fella who's mentioned on the back of this gold and enamel medallion?
Yes.
Charles Gladwin?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously I saw the gold flash and the enamel colours. It's a Football League medallion.
Yeah.
And it does have the full inscription, Champions Division 1, 1912-1913, Sunderland, and the name Charles Gladwin. Now this is 15 karat gold. It was made by Fattorinis, the great medalists and silversmiths. It's hanging from a later chain.
I think it was just a watch chain that my granddad had.
Right.
And they had it cut down and made into 3 chains for daughters.
He obviously must have been a terrific player, because not only did he win the Football League medal, but he also was presented with another gold medallion by the Athletic News.
Yeah.
And this one is League winners 1912-1913.
Yeah.
Now, presumably, this is Charles Gladwin's shirt.
Yes.
Now, what a rare survival. Sunderland, of course, are one of the great and biggest teams in Britain. And I know they've got that wonderful Stadium of Light.
Yeah.
But, of course, it was Roker Park, wasn't it?
That's right.
You won't remember seeing him play.
No.
But do you remember him as an older man?
Yes. Well, he worked in Treaton Colliery.
Right. That's quite near here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And he had to retire from football because he had a cartilage operation, then he had to have his leg off above the knee.
Right.
And then he went, obviously, back into pit.
Yes.
But then he were a train driver for the pit.
The wages then were so little with football that you just had to have another job.
Yeah, yeah.
Incredible. I mean, what footballers are paid now compared to what they were then.
Yeah.
It's true spirit of football. He must have been an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Because it's Sunderland, one of the greatest teams, and the fact that this is top of the First Division, the Football League, at auction that would fetch between £2,000 and £3,000.
God.
This particular medal here, not as rare as this, about 500 to 800.
Right.
But there's more, and I just love the box, a nice crushed Morocco box, the Football Association Challenge Cup, 1912-1913.
That's my cousin's.
That's your cousin's. Well, I hope they're watching, because this is worth £2,000 as well.
Right.
But you see, I'm giving you individual values, but of course the real value comes if you keep them all together. And my own feeling is that if these came up for auction, you'd have enormous interest, and they might make between 5,000 and 7,000 for the collection, including the photograph and the shirt.
It's a privilege to handle this medal, so I'd like to know the story behind it.
It was my father's, and my family had a telegram from Bomber Harris saying immediate award. My father's plane, Lancaster, was shot over Germany. It was badly damaged, and when it got back to the airfield, they said that literally God had brought the plane back. It was so damaged.
So what position did your father hold in Lancaster?
He was a navigator.
Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
So it was largely due to him that the Lancaster came back then. Well, it's a tragic story, but it's a wonderful story. And of course, he's got this Conspicuous Gallantry Medal. Now, the medal itself is very rare. There were only 111 awarded to the RAF during the last war. So this is really something. Even in our present reign with our own Queen, there has been only 3 in her reign awarded. The medal itself, as I say, it's wonderful to be able to handle this. And we've got to think about values because you've got to think about insurance.
Yes.
Now, the value of it today is 6,000 to 8,000. And your insurance, you must make 10 or 11,000. You were in Africa.
Yes.
You were in Italy.
Yes.
Then you went to France and Germany, so
yes.
they used you well, didn't they?
They did indeed.
Now, what regiment?
The Scots Greys.
Scots Greys.
The Royal Scots.
You weren't on horses then, you were in tanks?
In tanks, yes.
That's
yes.
right,
I was
yes.
a tank commander.
I
yes.
think you gave up your horses in Palestine,
In Palestine,
didn't you?
that's right, yes.
When?
About 1940.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it broke your heart, didn't it, to part with your
Yes, it did indeed,
Yeah.
it did. But we had to take part in a man's war, as Churchill said.
So, then what happened?
Then I left the Scots Greys in 45 and went to the Lifeguards.
Really?
Yes.
How long for?
20 years.
Good Lord.
Yes, yes.
And then how did you finish up?
Then I was a corporal of horse in the Lifeguards. And then in 65 I left the Lifeguards and went to the Honourable Artillery Company for 14 years.
Gosh, so you became a gunner?
I became a gunner. Yeah. Well, actually I was a musician, I was in the band.
That's wonderful, isn't it? But you've got all these for the coronations and
jubilees.
Jubilees.
Yes.
That's unusual.
That's right, yes.
This is a unique group.
That's right.
And I would think that any collector would love this group.
Yes.
And he would pay something like £1,600 for it.
Really? Really?
Yes.
Who is he? My father. He was born in Australia, and he came to this country, and he took his degree in Scotland as a doctor. And then he always loved the sea, so he started by being a ship's doctor.
Gracious.
And that is when he was on the Carpathia and the Titanic.
He was on the Carpathia?
Yes. And
what was his job on the Carpathia?
As a doctor.
As the only doctor?
The only doctor,
Good
yes.
gracious.
Yeah.
It says, presented to Dr. McGee as a slight token of affection and esteem by these survivors of the Titanic, April the 15th, 1912.
Yes.
They must have felt incredibly warmly towards him. I mean, he was just the man who had pulled them back from the brink of death.
Yes, I think so.
What do you think happened that night on the Carpathia?
Well, he didn't talk about it too much because it was so awful. And he said there was, all these frozen people he had to deal with brought out of the sea. And it was quite horrific.
It must have been terrifying.
He said it was terrifying, and of course there were lots of troubles which I won't go into about why it was so horrific. But he didn't want to talk about that too much either.
What an amazing story this is, because as you know at the moment there's a sort of fever of Titanic interest.
Yes.
Everybody's been to see the film. There have been huge reports in the press about the whole story of it as to why it happened, why certain people got the lifeboats and other people didn't. Up here we have a Humane Society award for him and all his bravery at that time.
Yes.
He really must have been a most extraordinary and remarkable man.
Yes.
This is a silver medal.
Yes.
Presented by the Humane Society,
Society,
which went in conjunction with the certificate at the back. But this is something quite different. This is the most extraordinary thing. This is presented to captain, officers and crew of RMS Carpathia from the survivors of the Titanic, April 15th, 1912. That is made out of 14-karat gold.
Yes.
And there were only 14 of them made.
Oh, yes.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
It's an extraordinarily rare thing. Only the most outstanding officers received one of these awards.
Yes.
It's almost unheard of if you think in the whole world there are 14 of these objects. The even more peculiar thing is that one of these was sold recently.
Yes.
Now, presumably you would never consider selling any of these objects because they're all family objects.
Yes.
They are perhaps things that you might consider insuring.
Yes. Haven't insured them, yes.
I think it's extremely important you do so, because in New York, in 1997, one of these medals was sold for $50,000. So that equates roughly to £30,000 now.
George heavens. I know I do. Can't believe it.
So I think what we have here, looking at your whole collection of objects, are probably things that ought to be insured for £50,000.
Yes, thank you. Yes. It's amazing.
How can you measure one man's valour?
Indeed.
Thank you very, very, very much.
It's been a very moving day for us. Thank you.
Well, this wonderful group of medals commemorates two of the most important military campaigns in Queen Victoria's reign. I wonder how you came by them.
Well, they belonged to my grandfather. Well, he earned them.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
He actually won them. Who was your grandfather?
Joseph Riley.
And I can see from there perhaps the most important one of the group is the Crimea Medal, so I'm assuming that he was in the Crimea. In which regiment?
17th Lancers.
Ah, right. So that was part of the famous Light Brigade from Tennyson's.
Was, so I gather, yes.
And was your grandfather one of the chargers?
He charged with them, yes.
Right. Well, that's the Crimea Medal, and you've got these 4 clasps on it for 4 of the most famous battles that you find on regimental histories: Sebastopol, Inkerman, Balaclava, very important, and also the Battle of the Alma. And it will be impressed round the bottom edge with his name, and we can see that there, J. Riley, 17th Lancers, and that absolutely confirms that that was given to him. To deal with this medal as well, that was given to British soldiers by the Sultan of Turkey as part of his gratitude for the fact that the British were bailing him out against Russian aggression. Turkey was known as the sick man of Europe, and the Russians were just dying to get their claws on it because it would give them a warm water port, and obviously that would upset the whole of the balance of power in Europe, and that's one of the reasons why Britain went to war against Russia in 1854. And then your grandfather was sent to India to deal with the mutinous sepoys in 1857 to 58. So that's the sort of record of his service. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to sit here with this, knowing that the man whose chest that it was pinned on actually sat on a horse and was going down that valley behind Lord Cardigan. We've all seen Trevor Howard in the film. Yeah. And you can imagine it as they started off at the walk, very slowly moving forwards, perhaps the Russians starting a few shots, and then at the trot to conserve the horse's energy. And then finally, when they were getting towards the last few yards towards the Russian batteries, the squadron leaders would have said, particularly for the Lancers, to the trumpeter to blow engage enemy, which meant the Lancers came down and then charge. And the Lancers would have stuck their lances out. The Dragoons and Hussars would have stuck their swords out at the charge, and they were whacked straight into that battery. And it's incredible to think that that was given to a man who was there. It's a very, very humbling experience, really, to see a thing like that.
Good job you didn't kill them all, else I wouldn't be here.
Yes, yes, that's very important, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Have you thought about what they might be worth?
I'm not really sure.
Well, Crimean War stuff is very, very sought after, and a group as important as this to a man who charged with the 17th in the Light Brigade between £5,000 to £7,000.
5 to 7? Oh, very nice. More than I thought.
Thank you for bringing them. They're absolutely wonderful.
They're very interesting, thank you.
Thanks.
When one comes to an Antiques Roadshow, I'm talking about the experts now, we like to feel that we're going to get something that day that's going to make our day. And today, it's happened for me. And here we have a Naval General Service Medal with a Trafalgar bar. Wonderful. Now, come on, tell me all about it.
Well, it was awarded to my great-great-great-grandfather, who was press-ganged into the Navy as a boy. And we don't know really where he went until he ended up on the Temeraire at Trafalgar. And sadly, he lost his arm in the battle and was invalided out after the battle, and went teaching, and the students and the pupils knew him as Hook. So it was Hook Cow.
Really? And when did he die, do you know?
He died in the 1860s and was buried in the Isle of Man.
Quite a long life.
Yes.
It's a good job that he did have a long life, because you see, this medal was awarded in 1847-48. What happened was, the Battle of Waterloo was in 1815, and they gave or awarded a Waterloo Medal in 1816. everybody in the Navy that had fought in the Napoleonic Wars and all those chaps in the Peninsular War, the Army, they said, these fellas have fought for one day and they've got a silver medal. We fought for 6 years and we haven't got anything. So this was a lot of bad feeling. Now from 1815, it rumbled on into the 1820s. They grumbled and grumbled, the veterans, into the 1830s, into the 1840s, and Queen Victoria was on the throne by this time. Then in 1847, they decided to award an Army General Service Medal and a Naval General Service Medal. But the twist in the tale was you had to be a survivor. Your next of kin couldn't claim it. So you see, your ancestor was alive and he managed to get his Trafalgar Medal.
Goodness me.
That's the way it worked.
Goodness.
Round the edge here, we have the name of the ship, the Temeraire. Now, the Temeraire was the ship that saved Victory, because when the Victory broke the line, she got on her starboard side the French ship, the Redoutable. And that's where the bullet came from that killed Nelson. The Temeraire came up on her starboard side and took the heat off of Victory. So, you know, that was an important ship. Now, how much do you think this is worth?
I honestly don't know. I mean, obviously it's been in our family for now around 200 years. And to be quite frank, it'll hopefully stay for another 200 years. But
yes.
I would really be very, very curious to know what it would be worth.
Well, I can tell you, this medal, if it was put on the market today, and heaven forbid that you did it, would fetch £5,000.
Really?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
I know it's a well-worn phrase, but you've made my day.
Well, you've made mine. Thank you.
Extraordinary story.
It's a really interesting life.
He really must have been a most extraordinary and remarkable man.
Well, we often get medals brought to the roadshow, but rarely do we get groups as well.